For centuries, gold meant truth until one decision changed the value of everything. This was the era of the gold standard, a system where the value of a country's currency was directly linked to a specific amount of gold. It was a symbol of stability, a promise that your money was backed by something real and tangible. So, what happened? Why did this golden age of currency come to an end? Who or what killed the gold standard? Let's dig in and uncover the truth. The story of the gold standard begins in the 19th century, with Great Britain leading the charge. The idea was simple and powerful. By pegging the British pound sterling to a fixed quantity of gold, the government guaranteed its value. This created immense trust in the currency, both at home and abroad. Soon, other major economies, including the United States, followed suit. For a while, it worked like a charm. International trade flourished under this predictable system. If you knew how much a dollar was worth in gold and how much a French franc was worth in gold, you knew exactly what their exchange rate was. There were no wild fluctuations, making global business much less risky. It was a world of financial certainty built on a foundation of gleaming, solid gold. But this golden fortress had a hidden weakness, one that would be brutally exposed by the turmoil of the 20th century. The first major blow came with World War I. The sheer cost of the war was staggering. Governments needed to print massive amounts of money to fund their armies, buy weapons, and keep their economies from collapsing. This was impossible under a strict gold standard, which limited the money supply to the amount of gold in their vaults. To finance the war effort, country after country made a fateful decision. They temporarily suspended the gold standard. They broke the link, freeing themselves to print the money they desperately needed. It was meant to be a temporary measure, but it planted a seed of doubt. The unbreakable promise had been broken. After the war, many tried to go back, but the world had changed. The economic landscape was scarred, and the old certainties were gone. The golden age was beginning to tarnish. After the war, there was a global effort to restore the gold standard, but it was a shaky and troubled return. The Great Depression of the 1930s delivered the knockout punch. As economies crumbled and unemployment soared, people panicked. They rushed to the banks not to deposit money, but to withdraw it in gold. This created massive bank runs and drained national gold reserves at an alarming rate. Governments faced a terrible choice. Either defend their gold reserves by raising interest rates, which would worsen the economic depression, or abandon the gold standard to free up their monetary policy and fight the downturn. One by one, they chose survival. Britain left the gold standard in 1931, and the United States followed in 1933 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Roosevelt famously made it illegal for private citizens to own large amounts of monetary gold, forcing them to turn it in for paper currency. This was a radical move, but it was seen as necessary to give the government the flexibility to stimulate the economy. The old gold standard was officially dead, but the story doesn't end there. After World War II, the world's leaders gathered at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to design a new international financial system. They didn't go back to the classic gold standard, but they didn't abandon gold entirely either. They created what's known as the Bretton Woods system. Under this arrangement, the US dollar was the new king. It was the only currency still convertible to gold, but only for foreign central banks, at a fixed rate of $35 per ounce. All other currencies were then pegged to the US dollar. For a while, this gold exchange standard provided stability and fueled a post-war economic boom. The US held the majority of the world's gold, and the dollar was as good as gold. This system worked well as long as the world had faith in the dollar and America's promise to redeem it. But that faith was about to be tested. By the 1960s, the Bretton Woods system started to show cracks. The United States was spending heavily, both on the Vietnam War and on domestic social programs. It began printing more dollars than it could back with its gold reserves. Other countries, particularly France, grew wary. They started to question whether the US could honor its commitment. They began cashing in their dollars for gold, and America's gold reserves started to dwindle at an alarming rate. The US was in a bind. If the trend continued, it would run out of gold, triggering a global financial crisis. The pressure mounted, reaching a breaking point in the summer of 1971. The final nail in the coffin came on August 15, 1971, in a televised address to the nation. President Richard Nixon announced a shocking decision. He was unilaterally closing the gold window, officially severing the last link between the US dollar and gold. Foreign governments could no longer exchange their dollars for American gold. This event is now famously known as the Nixon shock. It marked the definitive end of the gold standard era. From that moment on, all the world's major currencies became fiat currencies, their value based not on a physical commodity, but on trust and faith in the government that issues them. We entered the modern era of floating exchange rates, where currency values are determined by supply and demand in the open market. So, who killed the gold standard? There's no single culprit. It wasn't one person or one event. It was a slow death caused by a combination of powerful forces. The immense financial pressures of world wars forced governments to prioritize wartime spending over monetary discipline. The economic devastation of the Great Depression revealed the system's inflexibility in a crisis. And finally, the changing realities of the post-war global economy, with the US unable to maintain its golden promise, led to its final collapse. In essence, the gold standard was a system designed for a more stable, less dynamic world. It couldn't survive the explosive growth, global conflicts, and economic complexities of the 20th century. Modern economies demanded flexibility, the ability to expand the money supply to fight recessions, and fund growth that the rigid discipline of gold simply could not provide. Today, we live in a fiat money world. Does that mean gold has no role? Far from it. Central banks still hold massive gold reserves as a store of value and a hedge against uncertainty. Many investors turn to gold during times of economic turmoil, seeing it as a safe haven when trusting governments and their currencies falters. The debate continues. Was abandoning gold a necessary step towards modern economic management, or did we lose a crucial anchor of stability? The answer probably lies somewhere in the middle. The gold standard provided discipline but lacked flexibility. Fiat money provides flexibility but risks a loss of discipline. The story of the gold standard is a fascinating chapter in economic history, a powerful reminder of the constant evolution of money and the eternal search for a system that balances stability with the needs of a growing world. What do you think? Should we ever consider returning to some form of a gold standard? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a complex topic with passionate arguments on both sides. Thanks so much for watching and exploring this piece of financial history with me. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the world of economics and finance. When money lost its anchor, power found its freedom. See you in the next one.